Welcome to LED 3320 and this short video about Mother Goose and nursery rhymes. We'll be talking about poetry in another video, but right now I want to talk to you briefly about Mother Goose and nursery rhymes. So when we think about Mother Goose, there are a couple of different stories about Mother Goose and her origins. She's also been called Dame Goose. And one story is that she lived in the 1700s in Boston and was a gifted storyteller. There's a tour that you can take in the Boston area that claims to show you the actual grave of Mother Goose in one of the Boston area cemeteries. But at one point, researchers x-rayed that grave and discovered that it was actually empty, and that story is actually a hoax. The actual origins of Mother Goose start as early as 1697. Mother Goose first showed up in a book written by Perrault, who was a Frenchman who collected lots of different folk tales. Perrault had actually heard about Mother Goose through his parents and through their parents. Those stories were handed down orally. The story actually goes all the way back to the 1500s in France, to a woman who worked in a castle and who would come out to tell stories to children. She was a little bit unique because she was relatively thin, and her shoulder blades, because she hunched over a little bit, her shoulder blades looked a little bit like wings as they stuck out. In addition, she had a disorder which caused her fingers and her toes to be webbed. The kids called her Mère Law, which in French translates to Mother Goose. So those are her actual origins. If you ever go on that tour in Boston and they tell you about stopping to see Mother Goose's grave, you'll know that that's not the actual Mother Goose. So what I've put online for you, I've put online a little Mother Goose Challenge. It's located in the poetry folder on Blackboard under course content. I want you to go through that list with people around you, roommates, family members, whomever, and see how many of the headlines that you can figure out. So there is a headline for each of the Mother Goose rhymes, and your job is to read that headline and figure out which rhyme matches it. You can either, in the blank, put the title of the nursery rhyme or the first line of the nursery rhyme. It's not a quiz. I want to just see how many you can identify for fun. So bring those with you to our next class meeting, okay? So let's talk about some of the appeals of Mother Goose to young children. First off, and you'll remember we talked about this when we talked about literature as entertainment, Mother Goose nursery rhymes are full of rhythm and rhyme. And if you guys remember, one of the things we talked about is that as human beings, we're hardwired for rhythm because we begin to hear rhythm before we're even born via our mother's heartbeat. Rhyme, it's that fun sound of the language, and that's one of the reasons why these nursery rhymes help to build children's fluency. Children also like nursery rhymes and Mother Goose because they're participatory. What I mean by that is the verses are very short. They're easy for kids to remember, to memorize, and they get to then participate in reading and reciting those nursery rhymes. In addition, many Mother Goose nursery rhymes involve counting. Not every single one does, but many of them do, and that's something that young children really enjoy. They love to be able to participate by counting. Another reason for the appeal of Mother Goose to young children is the sound. A lot of times there's alliteration, which is the first sound in each word is repeated. So when we talk about the brown bouncing ball, that's alliteration. Each of those three words starts with the sound B, like in ball. Sometimes the rhymes are tongue twisters, and kids love to test themselves to see if they can make it through a tongue twister without stumbling. Another reason for the appeal is that they are verses that tell stories which are short and full of action. And if you'll remember, we've talked about the fact that kids like stories that have action because children themselves are very active. Just like in folk literature or folk tales, kids like them because good is reward and bad is punished. And that's what young children are looking for. A lot of times they want to be rewarded for behaving well, and so that's what they're looking for in their stories. Kids like them because the characters in Mother Goose rhymes or nursery rhymes tend to be likable characters, and they have positive and negative qualities. This is unique in terms of the history of children's literature. Usually you see characters who have either positive or negative qualities, but the characters in Mother Goose have both, which is a more round character. That's a more relatable character, because none of us are all good or all bad, and that's true of our students too. They like them because many of the rhymes are about animals, and kids love animals. The rhymes tend to be about misfortune, and kids like it when things go wrong, mostly because they want to see how do you recover from that. Many of the rhymes have to do with weather, which is familiar for children. Kids love to play outside, and so they're always concerned with the weather. They want to know what's it going to be like outside today. Kids also like nursery rhymes because there's humor in them. Strange things happen, and that puzzles kids. They want to know more about it. So when you're looking at a Mother Goose collection, you want to think of several things in terms of evaluating it. First, you want to look at the coverage. How many rhymes are covered in the collection? So for example, here's a collection. This is called Tail Feathers from Mother Goose, the Opie rhyme book. So you want to be able to look through it and see how many nursery rhymes does it include. This one includes a fair number. They're spread out, generally one to a page. So when you're looking at the collection, you want to pay attention to, does it have familiar nursery rhymes? Because that's important. You want to make sure there are some nursery rhymes in there that kids are familiar with, but you also want to make sure there are some rhymes that are less familiar as a way to expand your kids' knowledge. Okay? Another thing you want to pay attention to is the arrangement of the rhymes. You want to look and see, do the rhymes appear randomly or are they arranged with some sort of order? So for example, this one starts off, there's no table of contents. It starts off with a foreword, and then it begins with rhymes, generally one to a page. So this one, it's kind of hard to tell whether or not the poems are arranged with a purpose or not. You'd have to make some inferences in order to figure that out. But generally, you can look at the table of contents to see if there is an organizational scheme used. In addition, you want to look at the illustrations in the collection of Mother Goose rhymes you're looking at. You want to make sure that they are high quality illustrations, and you want to recognize that depending upon when the book was published, the illustrations may differ from what you would expect to see today. The illustrations will probably reflect the era in which the book was compiled, and that's okay. You just want to make sure you have a variety. You also want to make sure that the pictures on the pages easily connect to the rhymes, that you can see the illustrations and which rhymes they go with. In terms of format, you want to look at the binding, you want to look at the color of the pages, and you want to see if there are 1 or 2 rhymes per page, or if there are a lot of rhymes per page. Just like we talked about with alphabet and counting books, if there are too many rhymes on a page, it becomes overwhelming to the child. In addition, you want to flip to the back of the book and see if there's an index. And what you're looking for ideally is 2 different indexes. So for example, this one has 1. Here it is. This is the index, and this is a title index. Okay? The poems are indexed by title, which is fine, but what you're also looking for, if possible, is a first line index. Many of us don't know the actual titles of the nursery rhymes, but we generally know the first line. So the best Mother Goose collection is going to have a first line index as well as a title index. Finally, you want to make sure that the book represents some multiculturalism. If it's a contemporary collection of Mother Goose, it should reflect children from varied cultures. Now know that if you're looking at a Mother Goose book that was published in a previous era, it may not reflect that. But if you're looking at a more contemporary one, it should reflect a diversity of cultures. I'll show you a couple of examples of Mother Goose books. So I showed you this one, Tail Feathers from Mother Goose. This is one of my favorite. This one is a pop-up Mother Goose. It's called The Movable Mother Goose by Robert Sabuda. And so when you open this one up, it pops up, and then underneath on each page there are flaps that you can lift, and in each of those flaps there's another nursery rhyme. This one's a really special collection. I'm trying to get it right in front of the camera. In fact, let me go just to camera and I'll be able to show you some more of these. So this one, the poem is Little Miss Muffet, the big part. But then underneath the flaps, there are other nursery rhymes. Okay. Fun collection to have with you in your classroom. A Movable Mother Goose by Robert Sabuda. See if I can uncover his name. There it is. And then this one is an example. One of the things that's happening in the field of children's literature and with Mother Goose rhymes is that authors and illustrators are taking Mother Goose rhymes or nursery rhymes and turning each one into its own picture storybook. So here's an example called The Completed Hickory Dickory Dock. So not only have they taken Hickory Dickory Dock and turned it into a picture book, they've also put a little spin on it and ended it, okay, completed it. Those are just some things to watch out for as you're looking for Mother Goose books to add to your own collection. Thanks for tuning in.